was hoping to do a piece to camera down by the shore of Loch Tulla there, but I got absolutely swarmed by midges and they tracked me wherever I went. So I came back to the car to give you the lowdown on what I'm up to. So I'm not sure if I got anything this morning. I went to these trees that are very well photographed, and there are some bushes and shrubs and other trees that have grown up around them, so they don't stand out quite so prominently from the landscape as they have in the past. So, and I couldn't help feeling that any of the images I took around there felt a little bit contrived. I played around with some rocks on the shore, but I'm not sure if I got anything. Let me talk you through my plans for this trip. I've got 4 days booked on Harris. I have a ferry leaving from Uig on Skye tonight at 7. It's currently 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm in no particular rush. And this is very deliberate. I've spoken in previous videos about how I've treated Loch Lomond, Loch Tulla, Rannochmore and Glen Coe as pit stops rather than destinations. And I really wanted to spend my time on the way up, engaging with the landscape a little bit more. So this idea to treat the journey as the destination was going swimmingly up until my drone decided to take swimmingly a little bit too literally. Brought an inflatable kayak with me to explore some of the submerged trees that I've always enjoyed from the road on my way through Loch Lomond. And I was having a really nice afternoon, just relaxing after a long drive, and decided to send up the drone to get some aerial footage of me kayaking across the loch. It was like a comedy sketch. The drone just went up and then stalled and just fell into the water. I kind of scrabbled at it, almost caught it a couple of times, and then it floated to the bottom. Luckily it was in the shallows, so I managed to dive down and get it, but it's really frustrating. Honestly, I'm not sure whether it's going to make it. I'm not quite as devastated as I was when it first happened, because I read online that if you dry them out properly, they can survive. The batteries don't, but the drone circuit boards can survive. So I've got it drying out on my dashboard. I might try a test flight in about 48 hours once it's had time to dry out properly. I'd be really bummed if for the rest of this trip I didn't manage to get any drone footage at all. Myself, I still don't know how I feel about Glen Coe. It was so busy. Every park up and on the side of the road was absolutely rammed. I wanted to stop and do a little bit of vlogging, but it was near impossible. I guess this is what you get in late summer, early autumn. I'm glad to be leaving it behind, really. Just stopped off in Fort William to get some petrol and essentials and an umbrella for when the inevitable rainstorm comes.
Hello. Hello. That was quick. One I made earlier.
So much for taking my journey up north slowly. I can blame the midges and the crowds that swarmed Glen Coe, but first days are just a bit like this. I planned to stop off at Kyle of Lochaush for a shower, but just after I passed Eilean Castle, I drove into the remnants of a cloud inversion, and I couldn't resist the perfect photography conditions. The mist teased me as I drove onto Skye. Harsh sun alternated with moody silhouettes, and I was lost for where to go. I had some Google Map pins to explore at Schliegerahan waterfalls, so I hedged my bets there. I picked wrong. At that altitude, it was a blue sky day. The mist feigned the intention to creep into my composition, but it never did so. This is what first days are often all about: rushed eagerness and crushing disappointment. I returned to this location later in the week, and I got some cracking shots, so I'm finding it really hard to treat this image as anything other than a scouting snap. That being said, I composed completely differently on this first visit. I like how the whites of the cascade and the stripe of the cloud hem your eye into the scene. Then again, maybe this level of visual tension does not work here, and perhaps I'm compensating for the lack of weather drama with an aggressive composition. I could certainly make the argument for a black and white conversion here. Let me know in the comments what you think. Taking things slow on the journey to the Hebrides sounded like a good idea, as did a relaxing afternoon on a kayak. But after 400 odd miles of driving from Bristol to Loch Lomond, I found it difficult to adjust. Slowing from driving speed to rhythmic paddling pace was jarring, and my mind was racing. Months of preparation and anticipation reached a crescendo on my caffeinated drives to Scotland. I'd spent too much time projecting into the future, and for the first couple of days of a trip, it's hard to stay in the moment. The need to make all your effort worthwhile and force out photos can lead to rash decisions, and I always start these journeys a little deflated. However, despite being a somewhat farcical trip, I'm pleased with the scouting mission to Loch Lomond. The trees that I found would only need another 5 centimetres of water and some nice light to make for a very pleasing composition. Tempting as it is to edit this properly, or to make a black and white conversion, I'll wait for the right conditions before I spend any more energy on these trees. I know where they are, and I'll be back before too long. But what about Loch Tulla, where we opened today's episode? Well, I'm still not sure. I like the colours in the foreground here, but the pinks and blues of the sky make it a little garish and unbalanced. I can blame the midges for poor compositional choices, but lack of inspiration is the real problem here. I tried various things down by the loch shore, but the resulting images are equally uninspired. This is perhaps the only exception. It's not spectacular, but somehow I find the framing peaceful. Later in this trip, I get some spectacular light in dream locations, but this image has a hazy, pastel, watercolour quality that keeps drawing me back. Feeling somewhat dejected, I drove to the ferry. I couldn't help worrying. I worried about my drone and whether Harris would be too busy. Would I get the conditions for which I had spent months hoping? Would I make the most of the opportunities handed me and come away with some photos that would make the trip worth all the effort? The coming days would assuage my fears, and I would have some of the best photography of my life. But all that to come in the next 6 episodes. Oh, and did my drone survive? You'll have to tune into next week's video to see.